When I woke up, they told me I was the true heiress of the Lennon family, switched at birth, but the family already had a so-called false heiress they had raised for over a decade. They expected me to feel inferior, jealous, and resentful of fate's injustice, sinking into an abyss of endless sorrow. Yet as I looked upon this new era, free from war and hunger, devoid of the fear of death, this is, for me, the best of times. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I woke up, my head was throbbing as if it would explode. I reached up to hold it, feeling strange things flooding into my mind. For a moment, I didn't know who I was. My mind was a complete blank. Only when the turmoil in my head subsided did I finally have the energy to look around at this world. Unfamiliar yet somehow familiar. A sense of disconnection washed over me. I vaguely heard someone talking outside. She's not faking it, is she? A young boy's voice rang out, pretending to be hurt so everyone pities her, then making them all blame Rita. Harvey, Rita is the one you watched grow up. Jared, another clear male voice interrupted him. This is the Lennon family's private matter. You're overstepping. I have a marriage contract with Rita, so of course I'm on her side. The youthful voice continued. Harvey, I don't care where this other sister of yours came from. Our he family only recognizes Rita. I couldn't hear the rest of the conversation clearly. I opened my eyes and stared at the blank white ceiling, beginning to wonder who I was. Naomi. This is my name. I remember the sensation of the bullet piercing my heart, the suffocation and unwillingness when facing death. But I am definitely not the Naomi who survived under the gunpoint. This body moves with unfamiliarity. I am not this young, though my hands have calloused before. They were not the kind caused by such obvious household labor. I don't know how much time passed before someone pushed the door open from outside and noticed I was awake. I saw the faces of those who had been speaking outside the door. A handsome young man and a youth appeared within my line of sight. Naomi, you're awake. A clear voice sounded right before me. I looked over but didn't speak immediately. Perhaps it was because seeing him added another layer of memory in my mind. Maybe I should call him brother, but I hesitated to speak. And the young man beside him lost patience. Hey, how long are you going to keep pretending? I still didn't speak, staring at them for a long while until the young man sensed something was wrong and called for a doctor. Hospitals nowadays seem to have developed quite well. After examining me, the doctor in the white coat told them that I most likely had symptoms of temporary amnesia. The impatient young man had already left, and I didn't want to see him either. Just the sight of him felt noisy. The young man sat down by the hospital bed and said, Naomi, I'm your brother, Harvey. Do you still remember me? The doctor said your memories will gradually come back. He told me about recent events. The original owner of this body was a wealthy family's daughter who had been maliciously switched at birth over a decade ago. His biological younger sister. For over a decade, they had no idea the daughter they were raising at home was not their own. A rather cliched plot. Likely someone with ill intentions had swapped the children, selling their biological daughter to a remote mountain village where she endured years of hardship. It was only last year that Naomi heard from her adoptive parents that she had been bought from human traffickers. She went to great lengths to report it to the police, waited for the outcome, and finally reunited with her biological parents. Unfortunately, over those years, they had already raised an exceptionally outstanding daughter. Naomi was hospitalized this time after a conflict with Rita, falling down the stairs and suffering a concussion. She is very sensitive, having endured over a decade of hardship as a teenage girl, with scars covering her hands and body. She suddenly learned that she was supposed to have lived a life of abundance. This filled her with hostility toward the person who had taken her place, especially since she wasn't as beautiful, talented, or socially adept as the other girl. The other girl even had a fiancé, handsome and outstanding, and they seemed like a perfect match. In the grip of jealousy fueled by inferiority and resentment, she harbored hostility toward Rita. But the memories in my mind tell me that this time, when Naomi fell down the stairs, it was indeed Rita who pushed her. This situation concerns the fate of two girls. Naomi is filled with resentment and jealousy. Rita naturally feels anxious about her own identity. I looked at him and called out, "Brother, where are Mom and Dad?" Harvey remained silent for a moment. I know, Naomi's memories tell me that today is Rita's piano competition day. They went to watch the game, along with the very noisy Jared. They're coming to see you tonight. Harvey replied like this. I stopped speaking. Harvey said, Naomi, both you and Rita are my sisters. Although what happened to you was because of her biological mother, Rita truly knew nothing about it. Her biological mother passed away a few years ago. Mom and Dad have drafted a contract to gift you 5% of the company's shares as compensation. I was actually quite calm inside, but still couldn't help feeling sad for the girl also named Naomi. The family she desperately searched for actually loved her very little. I don't know where she went or if she's still alive, but I think it's actually a bit strange that I possess her memories. Do you have that 5% share? I looked up at Harvey. He paused. I then asked, Rita has some too. Maybe less. About 3%. You remembered. I hummed in agreement and asked, where's my phone? Harvey handed me a small cube. I had seen how to use it in Naomi's memories. I said, I want to be alone for a while. After that, Harvey left the hospital room. I picked up my phone, unlocked it from memory, and began searching for everything I wanted to know. So many years had already passed. The era I belonged to was completely gone, becoming history. In this country, in this era, there is no invasion, no war, and no struggle for basic sustenance. And I, Naomi, am but a grain of sand in the river of history, leaving no words behind. For a long time, I hadn't even used my real name. One afternoon, I held my phone, tears streaming down my face as I stared at the screen. The scenes that had only appeared in my dreams had actually come true. For me, this is the best of times. Although my mind holds the memories of another, Naomi, I still feel like a stranger in this world. I am filled with curiosity. Lying in the hospital bed, it wasn't until my current parents appeared that I understood the source of that tight, sour ache in my chest. It came from the emotions of this body. She, or perhaps, I, was unwilling and sought an answer. I think I understand her emotions. All she wanted was a bit of favoritism, not having to compete with others for it. I watched the well-dressed Lennon family parents, followed by the elegantly dressed Rita in a lavish gown. She is beautiful, or rather, she has been raised to be beautiful. Today, she is also dressed up. I lifted my gaze, looking at them calmly. Naomi, the mother of this body, spoke. What do you think? Good, I said truthfully. After all, I'm not the Naomi they know in their perception. Once I realized my identity, it became clear that even if my personality changed drastically now, they would only think I had psychological or mental issues. So there's no need for me to act like the previous Naomi. They seemed surprised by my tone, or perhaps they thought I was lowering myself to them. My current father looked at the bandage wrapped around my head and said with feigned seriousness, this time I'll let it slide. But if you act recklessly again, don't blame your mother and me for not caring about you. I recalled my own father, a refined scholar. Though he could be somewhat authoritarian and unyielding, he always made sure to persuade with reason when speaking. Without comparison, I wouldn't have realized how much more exceptional Mr. Sheen is at being a father than others. I responded with a hum, too lazy to say anything more. As for that gorgeously dressed usurper, a flicker of panic flashed in her eyes as she turned to glance at me before leaving. Our eyes met. Perhaps there was even a hint of unconscious provocation in her gaze. She looked down on me, yet at the same time, she feared me. After waking up, I spent a few relatively fulfilling days, almost every day glued to my phone. In this era, something called the internet emerged, which I consider one of the greatest inventions in the course of human development. Nearly all the information I wanted to know could be obtained from it. War hasn't disappeared from this world, but my country has enjoyed peace for a long time. After the bandages and gauze on my head were removed, I was discharged from the hospital. I was taken back to a rather exquisite house. Harvey was the one who brought me back. He said, Dad is on a business trip today, and Mom has plans with friends. You should rest well today. School starts tomorrow. Even if your foundation is weak, you'll need to work hard to catch up. Even upon being discharged, the absence of family members to welcome me didn't quite feel like what a family should be. Harvey's words seemed to imply one thing. The Lennon family only accepts those who are presentable. This pattern reminds me of a close friend's family. Her lineage was illustrious. But the women were raised as refined ladies and the men as cultured gentlemen, at least on the surface. Yet in such aristocratic families, it's not uncommon to find that all that glitters is not gold. Naomi had been back for less than a year when the Lennon family enrolled her in a new school. She was in her first year of high school. The current enrollment system is quite different from what I know, and there are quite a few subjects. My memory tells me that Naomi chose subjects leaning more towards the humanities after a semester of high school life. I returned to my room and carefully went through her various books. The next day, the driver took me to school. I and Rita attended the same school, except she was in the top class, always ranking at the top, forming a stark contrast with Naomi. Even though we were at the same school, the two of us didn't ride the same bus to school. Following my memory, I arrived at my classroom, and as soon as I entered, I noticed the previously noisy room fell silent for a moment. Naomi didn't actually have such a strong presence in the class. It's just that her current status is quite awkward. Publicly, she's known as the Lennon family's adopted child. Due to Rita and Jared's engagement, Jared only acknowledges Rita, but the he family might not necessarily do the same. If Rita's true identity were exposed, the he family might not value her anymore, but they certainly wouldn't value Naomi either. So the Lennon family chose to preserve the engagement in this matter. In other words, to protect their interests. But the biological child becoming an adopted one essentially reflects a lack of regard for Naomi. Naomi longed for familial affection, craved preferential treatment, but this household had none. I realized I was a relatively misfit presence in this class. This was a private high school where many enrolled students came from well-off families, the Lennons being one of the most prominent wealthy households. As an adopted daughter, I naturally became the subject of gossip. After being hospitalized and missing a few days of class, I wonder what version of the story has spread from their mouths. I lowered my gaze, resting it on the desk. Naomi, the handwriting isn't very good, and I'll have to imitate her writing for a while. Naomi, someone called my name, and then a shadow fell before me. I heard you were hospitalized. I raised my eyes and looked at the other person, a young man with his hair dyed red. I could feel my expression shifting from surprise to something indescribable. Not a single bit of appreciation. I knew who he was. A wealthy second-generation heir who admired Rita. Named Kane. Something wrong. I knew the original owner of this body wasn't close to him either. I heard you wanted to push Rita down, but ended up falling down the stairs yourself. Or did you intentionally fall? He spoke bluntly. Probably not considering whether the real Naomi could withstand such an interrogation if she were sitting in the classroom right now. I met his gaze and suddenly smiled. Yes, I argued with her. Couldn't win, so I decided to dive headfirst down the stairs to frame her. So what? Kane, no one expected my answer. Not even the others. He froze for a moment. I said. Is there anything else? After a long pause, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. How dare you? An adopted daughter. Adopted daughter. I leaned back slightly, sizing up the red-haired boy before me, then scoffed. What authority do you have to demand justice for Rita? Teenage boys at this age are the most easily provoked, quick to defend their sweethearts, yet also the most vulnerable to having their insecurities exposed. And just like that, he got angry. Do you have a death wish? As his words fell, someone walked in from outside. It was the homeroom teacher. After her gaze swept across the classroom, Kane also returned to his seat with a resentful expression. I began attending classes in this era. I've flipped through the history book over and over again, finding familiar histories within its pages, as well as glimpses of more distant pasts and countless events that followed. Compared to liberal arts textbooks, the science books appear much newer, very lopsided in my studies. I know the development of this society has already surpassed what my once limited imagination could depict. Naomi's memories can tell me much, but for what she doesn't know, I naturally need to explore on my own. For a whole week, I immersed myself in knowledge. I became aware of the indifference from those around me, from the memories of Naomi. I think I found a word to describe my current situation. School bullying. The entire class isolated me, and the teacher turned a blind eye. That's probably how it was. For a whole week, I've been processing the emotions brought by this body. Sometimes I can't even tell if it's me who's sad or if it's her. I wonder if the other Naomi is still alive. But I never find an answer. My relationship with the Lennon family has always been distant. Through studying the law, I've come to realize that I'm not currently listed on the Lennon family's household register. Merely an adopted daughter, being raised by virtue of blood ties. They've noticed the changes in my personality. My current father gave a perfunctory compliment, saying I've started to look more presentable. In his eyes, perhaps my current non-confrontational attitude already counts as significant progress. Rita spoke up at the right moment. Dad, I heard that Naomi and Cain had a rather ugly falling out. Should I say something to them? Rita has a very good relationship with those rich second-generation kids. After all, they move in the same circles. But as soon as she finished speaking, Louis's brows furrowed again. Louis, my current father. I opened my mouth. Dad, I want to live on campus. Rita's previous remark was brushed aside. Louis spoke more sternly. Why would you want to live on campus all of a sudden? Isn't it good enough at home? In his eyes, it was naturally very good. Feudal patriarch. In modern terms, this is how such people should be described. They simply cannot see the problems in their eyes. I lowered my gaze and said, my foundation is too weak. I want to spend more time on studying to improve my grades as soon as possible. Louis did not agree with me living on campus, but I know he'll eventually agree. Rita would probably be thrilled to have me stay away from the Lennon household. During this time, I've been quite enthusiastic about going out and getting to know this new world. Living under the same roof with the Lennon family, I think they can sense the changes in Naomi. Though they unanimously attribute these differences to my submission to them. I mentioned the idea of boarding at school to Harvey. He was quite puzzled. If you want to improve your academic performance, we can hire a tutor for you at home. There's no need to board at school. In the young master's mind, my decision was nothing short of seeking hardship. Or perhaps there was also an element of willfulness to it. I looked at him and said, I want to live on campus, regardless of whether my grades change or not. Can you talk to Mom and Dad for me? In my memory, this was probably the first time the sister, who had returned home, made a request to Harvey. Harvey remained silent for a while before replying. I can't guarantee it'll work. I successfully moved into the school dormitory. Louis, though authoritarian, he held his eldest son in high regard. Having graduated from university and entered the workforce, Harvey could be said to be his pride without exaggeration. I don't know what Harvey said, but he arranged for me to move into a single dorm room at school. I was very satisfied. The isolation from those around me seemed rather childish in my eyes. After all, my mentality wasn't truly that of a 16 or 17-year-old girl, and the behavior of my peers struck me as full of immaturity and naivety. Led by Cain, a few wealthy kids often played petty tricks, like knocking my books to the floor and offering a half-hearted apology, or leaving small insects on my desk. Though it wasn't a big deal, complaining about it likely wouldn't have yielded a satisfying outcome. So one afternoon, when Cain was napping at his desk and suddenly sensed something amiss, he opened his eyes to find a small black snake peeking out from under the desk, flicking its tongue at him. The entire classroom erupted in chaos. Cain's scream rang out first, followed by the entire classroom erupting in shrieks. I sat in my seat, watching the terrified classmates around me with satisfaction, a smile in my eyes. For a brief moment, my gaze met Cain's. Amidst the chaotic screams, the little black snake disappeared to who knows where. Later, Cain confidently told the homeroom teacher that I was the one who released the snake, because I had remained too calm during the incident. After hearing his words, the homeroom teacher looked at me. Naomi, do you have anything to say? I shook my head. Teacher, it wasn't me. If not you, then who? Cain said with certainty. You're the only one in the whole class sitting properly at your desk. I explained calmly. I just happen to not be afraid of snakes. How is that possible? Cain said in an agitated tone, swearing confidently. It must be you deliberately getting back at me. I chuckled. Why would I want revenge on you? Have you ever done anything to me? Cain stiffened his neck and couldn't come up with a response for a long while. I turned to the homeroom teacher and said, Teacher, this isn't exactly a trivial matter. Why don't we check the classroom surveillance footage? Surveillance footage. New tools I've learned about in the new era. Really great stuff. However, when checking the surveillance footage from the previous day to find out who put the snake there, we couldn't find anything. Instead, in the footage from the day before that, we saw Kane and a few others gleefully placing several caterpillars on my desk while I wasn't in the classroom. I watched the surveillance footage expressionlessly, while the teachers and administrators around me looked at me strangely. And Kane fidgeted uncomfortably. Boys at this age, none are shameless. It's just a matter of degree. After the scare from the snake, his psychological defenses are as weak as they can be. From the surveillance footage this morning, roughly before anyone arrived in the classroom, a black snake slithered in through the door gap, past several desks, and unmistakably crawled into Kane's desk. Kane watched the footage with his hair standing on end. He had been in such close proximity to the snake for several hours. His face turned pale with fright. That very day, the young master took leave and went home, reportedly running a fever from the scare. That night, quite a few students were absent from the classroom, probably afraid another snake might crawl out from somewhere. After that, it became a matter of dispute between the students' parents and the school, which organized a snake and insect prevention campaign. None of this had anything to do with me. At night, I returned to my dormitory, where the desk lamp was on, and I studied the lessons I had fallen behind on. After a while, a faint rustling sound was heard, and a small pure black snake slowly crawled up the lamp to my wrist, flicking its tongue. Yet it was docile and adorable. I chuckled lightly and tapped its tiny head. After that day, I felt much more at peace, even though Kane and the others still came to class on time. But when reviewing the surveillance footage, his parents were also present. Kane's behavior of openly encouraging others to bully a female classmate made both parents frown. His family consists of parents who are both highly ambitious in their careers, with the mother being even more formidable than the father. He learned his lesson, but I never got an apology, and neither did Naomi. After the monthly exam, my grades did improve compared to before, but it's still not enough. During my time at school, I didn't see Rita very often, but she was somewhat of a celebrity on campus, and news about her never stopped reaching my ears. What competitions she participated in, what awards she won, or matters between her and Jared, or even rumors about her and me. On weekends, I also didn't like going back to Lennon's house. Finding an excuse not to go back wasn't difficult. I spent money on tickets and visited all kinds of exhibitions in the city. I saw many relics left by history, and even found familiar names in some records. But there were also many people like me, who passed through history without leaving a single word behind, like tiny streams merging into the vast ocean. Even now, I still carry complex emotions in my heart. Even when walking through places I've been before, I often feel an absurd sense of the relentless passage of time. In less than a century, the changes that have taken place on this land were beyond my wildest dreams back then. The end of the term came quickly, and I submitted my application to change subjects to the homeroom teacher. The current college entrance examination system also seems to have undergone some changes. After much deliberation, I still chose physics, chemistry, and biology. The homeroom teacher looked at my report card and said, "Naomi, your grades would give you an advantage in the humanities." Yes. For most of the semester, I managed to become the top student in the worst class. My grades in history and politics even ranked well across the entire grade. And the same went for English. Classes would be reorganized based on performance in the second year of high school, and I was likely to be moved to a different class. Despite my significant improvement in science subjects, my homeroom teacher still didn't think highly of me. She earnestly advised me, saying that girls who excel in humanities might face a significant gap if they switched to science. I didn't change my mind. This matter still reached the Lennon family's ears. Louis disagreed with my decision to change subjects. In his view, Rita and I studying humanities and then attending a decent university would bring great prestige when it came to marriage discussions in the future. Both Rita and I were excluded from the company's inheritance rights. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to him. Louis was furious. He said, "You clearly perform better in liberal arts than in sciences. Why insist on studying something you're not good at? With your current grades, you could get into a decent university through the college entrance exam. What if you switch to sciences and end up failing miserably?" I remained calm. I can do well. I knew why he was so angry. It wasn't about whether I was good at sciences or not, but because he detested anyone in this household who defied him. He seemed to laugh in exasperation at my response. But just then, My current mother quietly interjected. Harvey has always been good at science since childhood. Maybe Naomi also. As these words were spoken, I saw Rita's face pale slightly. The Lennon family's favoritism manifested in every aspect. They, including Harvey, usually sided more with Rita. This was her greatest reliance. But blood relations cannot be changed. I don't care about the Lennon family, so I won't spare another glance at their habitual displays of affection. For example, Rita and Harvey's room with all those expensive clothes and jewelry. I don't care about them, just like how Naomi didn't care before. She is a girl who wants love, but I've already passed the age of pursuing it. I insisted on studying science. Being overlooked in this household also has its advantages. Thanks to my persistence, the school arranged a new class for me. Everyone is busy during the summer vacation. The Lennon family has parents occupied with business and social engagements. Harvey is busy with various company takeover matters. Rita is attending classes for various musical instruments and spending time with Jared. I don't understand why, in this day and age, teenagers of 16 or 17 are bound by a marriage contract. Perhaps they don't see it as a constraint. I spend all day buried in my room studying. In this era, information is acquired quickly and easily. As long as I'm determined, I can gather all kinds of tutoring courses online. The knowledge I once wanted to access but had to give up due to various limitations now comes flooding toward me like a tide. I study desperately. When my head was spinning from studying, I walked out of my room and headed downstairs, just in time to run into Rita. She was dressed up as usual today, her entire outfit looking expensive, with flawless makeup. When our eyes met, she paused for a moment, then a look of disdain flickered in her eyes. I had no desire to talk to her and was about to walk past. Naomi, I heard her call out to me. Do you think you're special just because you're the biological child? Similar words. It seems like Naomi has heard them before. I looked at her in confusion, wanting to hear what else she had to say. In our circle, someone as rustic as you can never fit in, she said slowly. You've been back for so long. Have you made any friends in this circle? None of them think highly of you. She was trying to break through my defenses with such bitter, cutting words. I lowered my gaze to look at her. So what? Rita didn't see any panic or resentment on my face. She probably felt like she had punched cotton. You know, families like ours will only arrange marriages with those of equal status in the future. Someone like you, who can't even be brought to the table, will probably end up being married off by dad to some mediocre man. She thought she was threatening me with the most terrifying and tragic scenario. I feel sorrow. You're only in your teens, yet you've already entrusted your future to family and a man. Don't you feel sorrow? I asked her. After hearing my words, she suddenly laughed, as if mocking my naivety. Rita said, do you know that my starting point is the end point that many people can never reach no matter how hard they try in this lifetime? Did you ever dare to dream of a life like this before? I understand. She is clear-headed, or perhaps maintaining relative clarity amidst the turbidity. She knew exactly what she wanted. I couldn't tell her that my youth was far more extravagant than my current life. Though it lacked the technological conveniences we have today, I was pampered growing up, never having to worry about my future, until I saw the backbone of our nation being crushed beneath mountains amidst the flames of war. At this moment, I clearly realized that Rita and I could never be on the same wavelength. So I said, then I wish you can always hold on to the kite string in your hands now. Throughout the entire summer vacation, I was studying textbook knowledge, studying this world, and studying the era I'm in now. Although there are memories left behind by another Naomi, it's undeniable that her understanding of the world is, to some extent, outdated. Her misfortunes and regrets can no longer be remedied. The only thing I can do is to become better together with her. My presence in the Lennon household isn't particularly strong. Rita might appreciate my tactfulness, but my current parents think I'm not presentable enough. As for Harvey, my so-called stepbrother, he still manages to spare a little of his limited patience to ask about my daily life. The start of school brought me a sense of relief. Without pause, I moved to the school and buried myself in studies in the new class. In this class, I sensed something different. No isolation, no teasing, and no mockery. At first, my classmates looked at me with curiosity in their eyes, but later, their gazes became ordinary again. Naomi, are you a monster? How could someone score dozens of points higher in midterms than in monthly exams? My deskmate shrieked wildly. Yes, I even have a deskmate now. My deskmate is a very lively girl. She was amazed by my dedication to studying and how quickly I improved in science subjects. It wasn't just her. The teachers felt the same way. I vaguely remember our new homeroom teacher once looked at my grade report and gave me some words of advice. There's a stereotype that girls might face some difficulties in science subjects, especially when grades are the measure. Before the end of my first year of high school, my grades in humanities were indeed far better than those in science. In other words, they thought I was limiting my options. I have to admit that among all the subjects, I still love history the most, eager to experience the changes of the times and the life we have today. But I still remember the regrets from my past life and those shared with like-minded friends. And just like that, the entire second year of high school passed in a flash. This year has been amazing. My grades climbed into the top 10 of my grade. It was a scene that left everyone stunned. The teacher who once advised me that humanities were more advantageous than sciences quietly shut their mouth. The humanities class teachers eyed my humanities grades with envy. They came to inquire, but were all turned away by my current science subject teachers. Now, even if I wanted to switch back, it's unlikely the teachers would let me go. Although it's a private high school, not all the students come from wealthy families. Many of my classmates come from well-off but not extravagant families, making the Lennon family I belong to stand out as truly affluent. Lewis was quite pleased with my grades, but when he asked me to attend a certain banquet, I refused. I knew exactly what kind of event it was. He was starting to assess my worth. Among those who are well-matched, choose one for me who can be of help to the Lennon family's business. Harvey is still single precisely because Lewis is also weighing up the girls from other families. My rebelliousness displeased him, so he cut off my allowance. A father who raised his daughter for less than 2 years now puts on the airs of a despotic monarch. This I find to be the most absurd reality. He probably expected me to bow my head to him in order to return to a life of luxury, while also ordering the Lennon family not to provide me with any financial support. He probably forgot that this daughter, who had returned home for less than 2 years, had never actually enjoyed the so-called life of luxury. I may be enchanted by this era, but I have never been obsessed with money and fame. For someone like me, who is about to come of age, there are simply too many ways to make money in this era. The most straightforward and suitable option for one of my students would probably be tutoring. Coincidentally, this school is full of wealthy people. The Lennon family can't help me, but I can find someone else. Connections are indeed very important. My class monitor said she found me a student who's not short of money, and as long as I tutor them, the pay would be quite substantial. The parents are very generous. The class monitor is very kind. Her family is in the real estate business, so their background must be quite good. I'm not sure which social class they belong to, but I've never seen anyone around who would want to offend her. I gladly accepted her kindness. When I arrived at the tutoring student's house at the agreed time, I saw a massive villa estate, much larger than the Lennon family's, a very extravagant style. I had grown accustomed to such surroundings, so I entered without batting an eye, only to see Kane lounging like a boss on the sofa. His reaction was bigger than mine, as if he had stepped on a snake and jumped up. Naomi, WHWH, what are you doing at my house? It's this young master. I chuckled. Kane, long time no see. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Naomi, also the tutor your family hired for you. After that, Kane's tantrums to his guardian about changing tutors were no longer within my consideration. In the end, Kane sat down beside me with a reluctant expression. Clearly, his resistance had failed. The young master glared at me fiercely. Don't think just because my mother likes you, you can do whatever you want. Believe me, I'll have you kicked out soon. I chuckled lightly. Try me. He's furious. Kane really has a way with words, and not in a good way. He often says things like, "The Lennon family adopted you, didn't they? Why do you still have to work?" I didn't react to his words and instead focused on his grades. Kane's math is so bad that I'm speechless. The only subjects he's decent at are Chinese and English. Take the money, do the job. I'm well aware of that. I need to help Kane climb the wall. His mother paid way too much. I paid for my senior year tuition myself. During the summer vacation of my junior year, I didn't return to the Lennon household. Louis was authoritarian enough. He didn't allow anyone to help me out. I spent that summer trying out various part-time jobs. Some were quite rewarding. I earned a good amount and later applied for a scholarship at school. The tuition fees at this private high school are expensive, but the scholarship amounts are also sufficiently high. I have no issues with my living conditions. After the first monthly exam of senior year ended, Kane's parents were very satisfied with the results of my tutoring, and I received a considerable payment, then continued to tutor Kane. Of course, he wasn't my only client, but he is my living advertisement. Kane's academic progress led the parents of several friends who knew him well to contact me, but there were many scheduling conflicts. Initially, it was one-on-one sessions, but later we simply had them attend together. Only Kane still has one-on-one sessions. I have to give his mother some face. The children of wealthy families are indeed hard to manage. They don't care about grades at all. The only thing that can make them care is that bit of internal competition. When one person improves, the others are gradually pushed to move forward as well. I just couldn't persist in the tutoring job for long, as the school later arranged for me to participate in competitions. Other matters had to be put aside for the time being. Learning is the top priority for students. I see my ranking on the school honor roll moving higher and higher. The label on me is no longer the Lennon family's adopted daughter, but Naomi. As time passed, my name reached the top, not only in the entire school, but also in the whole city. My grades were among the top. As the college entrance exam approached, some of my classmates around me became much more relaxed, as their families had already paved a smooth path for them. I heard Rita would study abroad with Jared. When I heard the news, out of responsibility to my former employer, I happened to meet Kane and comforted him a few words, encouraging him to focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. Kane stared at me for a long while, stammering, you, without managing to say anything meaningful. He even seemed somewhat flustered and angry, perhaps because my words had struck a nerve. After the college entrance exams ended, I rented a small apartment outside. One day I suddenly received a call from Harvey, who asked me, "When are you planning to come home?" I paused for a moment. "What's the matter?" Harvey asked me. "How long are you going to stay angry with Mom and Dad? Your college entrance exam results will be out soon, and then the family will host a celebration banquet for you and Rita. For the next few years of university, are you really going to rely on part-time work to support yourself?" He laid out the pros and cons for me. All I had to do was swallow my pride and apologize, and this whole thing would be over. Or rather, it would have been over long ago. My grades provided the answer. On the day the college entrance exam results were released, I refreshed the page several times but couldn't see my own scores. As expected, then my phone became busy. Not only did I receive calls from various admissions officers and my senior year homeroom teacher, but even the Lennon family called. This time even Louis personally contacted me. I guess some admissions calls reached Lennon's home. The emergency contact information provided during enrollment probably has theirs. I don't know my exact ranking, but it's clearly not bad. Unfortunately, my household registration now lists only myself. Louis suggested that I choose a school from the top tier and follow his advice regarding majors. He said it would be best for me to select law or finance, and foreign languages would also be a great choice. Before I could make a decision, the results were announced. Provincial top scorer. I'm not surprised. I've put in a considerable amount of effort over a long period of time to achieve this result. Whatever outcome I get now is the fruit of my labor. After turning down many admissions officers, I finally chose the school I had my heart set on. But when the news reached the Lennon household, Louis flew into a rage. "You're a girl. Why can't you go to any other university? Why must you insist on the National University of Defense Technology? The Lennon family is in business, and this circle basically has little to do with my choices." Not only Louis doesn't understand, but even my current mother, Ms. Linda, she doesn't understand either. Her well-maintained face showed disapproval and an unfamiliar worry as she said, "Naomi, this field is too exhausting for a girl. You don't need to choose such a path." Harvey frowned and said, "What on earth are you thinking?" Even Rita had a puzzled look on her face. All I could say was, "I know what I'm doing. The path I've been walking has never changed." I still remember how the school was shocked for quite a while after I got admitted. In fact, The school's results that year were all quite impressive. All the students I tutored made progress. Kane in particular. He got into a rather good university, and from what his mother said, they're planning to steer him towards politics. It's hard to imagine how someone who used to be so reckless has started to become steady. I attended Kane's college celebration banquet. To my surprise, he didn't invite Rita. Or perhaps Rita didn't come. He put on a suit and actually looked somewhat presentable. But his expression seemed a bit awkward. Holding up my glass to toast his academic success, I said, "Congratulations." Kane stared at me motionlessly, so I lowered my head to glance at my outfit. Though not from any major brand, it was a smoky blue cheapao I adored, and I thought I was dressed quite appropriately. "What's wrong?" Kane no longer spoke with that confrontational tone. He hesitated for a long while, and finally, I heard the words, "I'm sorry," from him. "I was wrong before. Thank you for your help over the past year or so." The young master probably wasn't used to apologizing. His face flushed red as he spoke. Looking somewhat nervous, I chuckled and said, "I'll accept the apology. But there's no need for thanks. If you want to thank someone, thank your mother for trusting me and offering such a high hourly rate. After all, I'm being paid to do this job." Kane seemed like he wanted to say something more, but someone came over to greet him, an elder from his family. I smiled and didn't disturb them. The Lennon family finally realized that I probably don't care much about their wealth and influence. When it comes to choosing my future, I don't take advice from any of them. Lewis once again made harsh remarks, saying he'd wait for me to regret it and come back begging him. I have no idea where his confidence even comes from. I'll be heading off to school right after summer break. University in this era. Over the past 2 years, I've fully adapted to modern life and learned many things. The me from the past could never have imagined what the world looks like today. After starting university, my contact with the Lennon family became even less frequent, and I rarely went back even during holidays. That place was never Naomi's home, and now it certainly won't be mine either. How can a place without a sense of belonging be called home? My college years were busy, yet fulfilling and joyful. I met many new friends and learned many new things. After completing my undergraduate studies, I continued on to graduate school. During this time, I heard that Rita and Jared got married, but I didn't attend their wedding. At the time, I was participating in a closed project with my advisor and didn't have my phone with me. By the time I checked my phone again, their wedding had already been over for several days. Lewis was still angry, but he couldn't control me. When I was about to graduate from graduate school, I received a call from Harvey, who said, "I'm getting married on the 16th of next month. Will you come?" He's almost 30, so marriage is normal. I heard the bride is a well-matched young lady from a wealthy family, and she's been dating Harvey for 3 years. Harvey probably learned his lesson and notified me over a month in advance. "I certainly can't promise," I said. "If there's no schedule conflict, I'll attend." I recall the scene when I first awoke in this era, and to this day I still remember clearly that I have no right to speak for the former Naomi in finding closure. Moreover, from my perspective, I don't agree with such family values either. Soon, I'll be leaving to pursue my PhD. Upon learning that I was going home to attend the wedding, my advisor frowned and went to submit the application. When I returned, I had 2 bodyguards with me. Though they were dressed in civilian clothes, their demeanor was hard to conceal. At Harvey's wedding, I saw many familiar faces. Some were still living a carefree life, while others had already married and started families. When I appeared, some didn't even recognize who I was. But when their eyes fell on me and Harvey, they would lower their heads in surprise and whisper among themselves. My facial features haven't changed much, but since this body and Harvey are biological siblings, it's normal for us to share some resemblance, especially considering Harvey stands at 185 centimeters tall, while I've reached 175 centimeters myself. In contrast, Rita has a much more petite figure, and her facial features bear less resemblance to the Lennon family members. Rumors always tend to spiral into absurd directions, with some people already speculating about whether Rita or I am the biological daughter. But given that she's been the one in the spotlight all these years, more people tend to believe I'm Lewis's illegitimate child, since the Lennon family wouldn't have any reason to adopt another daughter when they already have both a son and a daughter. No matter what others speculate, The Lennon family's affairs aren't really my concern. When I met Harvey and his new wife, I still presented them with wedding gifts and blessings. Harvey's expression was quite complex when he saw me. His gaze swept over the two guards following behind me as he said softly, "It seems if I, as your brother, didn't send you an invitation in advance, you wouldn't have come back." I remained silent, because that was indeed the case. He probably had already realized that the path I took was different from what they had always believed. "I don't feel much sense of responsibility or belonging towards the Lennon family," Harvey asked. "Are you going to say hello to your parents?" "Later," I said. I didn't expect to run into Kane here. He has indeed become much more mature and steady than before. After graduation, he embarked on a political career. With his family's support, he hasn't made any missteps, and his future looks very promising. "Naomi," he called out to me, looking slightly awkward. "Long time no see. How have you been lately?" About Kane, memories of him surged in my mind. I found it quite difficult to connect the refined man before me with the person who once threatened me in the classroom, asking if I wanted to die. I nodded. "Good. And you?" He chuckled. "I'm doing well." After a moment, he asked me, "How long are you staying this time after coming back?" I replied, "I'm leaving tomorrow. There's still a pile of data in the lab waiting to be verified." Kane seemed to show a hint of disappointment on his face. After a long pause, I heard him chuckle softly. "You've really become a busy person these days, usually impossible to get in touch with." I don't deny that sometimes I do reply to others' messages a bit slowly. As we were speaking, Kane's mother walked over. She had been something of a mentor to me, so I greeted her. "Auntie, long time no see." Kane's mother still appeared as dignified and elegant as ever. She smiled at me with her eyes crinkling. "Oh, it's Naomi. You've grown so beautiful now. Do you have a boyfriend? Does our housing stand a chance?" As soon as she said this, Kane froze. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I paused for a moment too, then chuckled lightly. "Auntie, I've noticed many young girls sneaking glances at Kane." Kane said, "Don't mind my mom. She's just joking. She says this to everyone now, as if I'm some kind of unsellable product." This little episode was just Harvey's ordinary small talk at the wedding. After attending the wedding, I went to meet with the Lennon family's parents. Unexpectedly, there was a young man standing beside them. From Lewis's introduction, I could roughly guess something. I said, "I'm leaving tomorrow." Lewis frowned. "Why so urgent? You're going to school. Why does it seem like you've been bought out by the school?" "MS," Linda said from the side. "This is the third son of the Lee family, a friend of your brother. Why don't you young people get to know each other?" I chuckled, suddenly recalling a senior who complained about being forced into blind dates during his holiday break. "No need to get acquainted, and no need to introduce me to potential marriage partners," I said calmly. "If someone wants to marry me now, their immediate family members within 3 generations would have to pass a political background check. Can you accept that?" I don't care how angry this couple is. As I was about to leave, I saw Rita and Jared in the hallway. Life after marriage for this childhood sweethearts wasn't as sweet as I imagined. They had a disagreement. Jared was trying to leave. Rita was trying to stop him. I heard Jared say, "Do you know how strange the looks were that the people at that table gave me when they talked about Harvey and Naomi being more like siblings?" Rita's voice carried exhaustion. "Didn't you know from the beginning? Are you feeling awkward now because you see Naomi's beauty? Or because of her current status?" The voice abruptly stopped. I walked out without changing my expression, followed by my guards. I didn't look at their expressions. There's no need to look. As I walked away, I could still faintly hear their argument. After attending Harvey's wedding, I returned to school and remained immersed in my research. I wasn't very concerned with outside matters. During my PhD, the only people I usually communicated with were my advisor and senior students. Everyone's hair is thinning equally. Once again, news about the Lennon family surfaced online. The Lennon family's purchased land was involved in an incident. Not only was a large sum of money invested, but workers were also injured. It's unclear what exactly happened in between, with rumors circulating that the place was unclean, haunted by something sinister. There are now even specialized departments taking over. Someone captured footage of people in Taoist robes entering an abandoned house with a compass. I didn't care about the Lennon family's affairs until I saw a familiar gourd pendant in the various photos circulating online. I stared for a long time, not even noticing when someone approached, until my advisor spoke up. "What are you looking at so intently?" I looked up. "Teacher, I'd like to request leave." I contacted Harvey and said I wanted to go take a look at that piece of land. He had clearly been quite troubled by this matter recently, and couldn't hide his surprise when he heard I wanted to go see it. "What are you going there for? Don't come and make more trouble. The area has been cordoned off with police tape, and guards are stationed at all entry points. Without someone to escort me, I can't get in." When I arrived, I still saw Harvey waiting by the roadside. After not seeing him for a while, he looked much more haggard. "He still doesn't understand why I came here. Naomi, this isn't some fun place to visit. The rumors online didn't come out of nowhere. You'd better not go in." All I could see was that old, decrepit house, as if something was urging me to approach it. Some perplexities I had never unraveled seemed to have their answers right before my eyes. As we entered, we saw SWAT officers and an elderly man in Taoist robes. The SWAT officers were even armed with what appeared to be guns, while the Taoist elder wore a grave expression. Upon seeing us enter, their first reaction was to try to make us leave, until I met the gaze of the old man in the Taoist robe, and after a long moment, he seemed to sigh. "So it's a destined one." I didn't understand his words, but the few of us were allowed to stay, and the people resembling special police officers standing beside the old man in the Taoist robe no longer drove us away. I didn't know which department they were from, but they appeared to be official and very serious. I walk through this dilapidated house, feeling the weight of history with every step I take up the creaking stairs. Back in high school, I had inquired about my hometown and visited it. My former residence had long been reduced to ruins in the war, only to be rebuilt afterward. This place doesn't match any memory of mine. Yet now, in the dust-covered side room on the second floor, the grimy gourd pendant hanging by the bed reminds me of someone. I've never been here before, but perhaps he has. I approached and heard someone whispering below, seemingly trying to stop me from entering that room. I faintly caught the words, "Peak of Yin energy." It was still daytime, but this place was so dark it seemed cut off from the sun. In the corner stood a wooden table, worn down by years of neglect, looking utterly dilapidated. As I took in the scene, my mind could almost picture it. A young man in Western-style trousers and a shirt, bent over the desk many years ago. The air was thick with a musty smell as I slowly approached the bedside, reaching out toward the gourd pendant hanging by the bed. A faint breeze suddenly stirred in the air the moment my fingers brushed against it. It was just a very inconspicuous peachwood pendant. The red string that had held it together had completely faded over the years, and the cord had grown so fragile that it snapped at the slightest touch. The mystery I had been pondering seemed about to be unveiled. My hand trembled slightly as I held the gourd pendant, peering at its base under the light of my phone's flashlight. I could barely make out some faintly carved marks, so blurry I could barely see, yet I still recognized it. 3 characters written there. Naomi. The year we parted. We exchanged these as gifts. This was the one I gave away. The one I received was later buried with me in some unknown place. Tears slipped down my cheeks at some point, blurring my vision, and my long-dormant heart suddenly burned with warmth. I heard a sound by my ear, like footsteps, yet mingled with breathing. Clutching the gourd pendant in my hand, I slowly turned to look. In that dim room, I saw another tall shadow, and the door seemed to be shut by the wind at that very moment. My breath caught for an instant. I stood motionless, staring at that figure. "Malcolm, is that you?" I wanted to see that face clearly and took a step forward, but the figure retreated a step back. "Malcolm." I stopped in my tracks. "Let me see you, please." He stopped, and I moved forward, seeing the wound on his neck in the dim light, a slit throat. My tears fell once more. Looking up, the face that had grown so distant I could barely remember it appeared before me again. He was my Malcolm. I wanted to reach out and touch him, but as my hand stretched forward, it met only a wisp of air. Grief washed over me, and the belated sorrow made me burst into tears. My Malcolm. How long has he been trapped here? "Naomi, don't cry." After a long pause, I heard a voice speak, a voice from another lifetime. My vision blurred with tears again, but I wanted to see him clearly, so I wiped my eyes and looked up to see his hand, extended and then withdrawn. Just as I couldn't touch him, he couldn't touch me either. I looked up and finally saw his face clearly. He looked no different from how I remembered. Delicate features that still appeared refined and scholarly, though my sorrow was unmistakably evident. Malcolm, tell me about yourself, will you? I wanted to know about his experiences and what he had been through, why he was trapped here, and most of all, why I had awakened in this era. Malcolm revealed a faint sadness in his eyes. Naomi, I don't remember. He had been confined in this house for many years, until recently when the Lennon family started construction. Malcolm said he only remembers waiting for someone, and it wasn't until he saw me that he realized the person he was waiting for was me. He wanted to see me one more time. I stared intently at Malcolm, afraid that if I blinked, he would vanish from my sight. I never thought I'd see an old acquaintance again in this lifetime. I never assumed Malcolm was still alive, but I often imagined that after my death, he would meet someone wonderful after the war ended, and his descendants would live on this land just as I do now. But he died in that era. Just like me, he remained here alone for many years. Naomi, I have to go, Malcolm said abruptly. I looked at him, tears uncontrollably falling once more. Naomi, be happy. I watched as his figure gradually grew indistinct. I reached out, but my palm grasped nothing. He slipped through my fingers like flowing sand. This room is dim and sunless, yet my Malcolm is no longer here. All that remains in my palm is a weathered gourd pendant, aged by the passage of time, as if what I just saw was merely a figment of my imagination. The old Taoist priest told me that Malcolm had clung too tightly to his obsessions in life. Before death, he made a final wish, carrying merit from his deeds. His lingering attachment brought me here, the same attachment that kept him steadfast for so many years. He wanted to see me one last time. This is why strange occurrences frequently happened in this area when construction began. Malcolm might cause greater harm to others, which is the reason this place was shut down and taken over by the government. If I hadn't appeared, it would have remained closed indefinitely. The old man in Taoist robes said, Malcolm has a golden aura, and according to the rules, they cannot take action against a soul bearing great merit. He smiled and told me that I also have a golden aura, a convergence of past and present lives. I don't care about these things. Where has Malcolm gone? I asked him. When one dies, they enter the cycle of reincarnation. Lingering in the human world is no different from binding oneself in a cocoon. His obsessions have dissipated, and he will embrace a new life. I don't know what he meant by rebirth, but I sincerely pray Malcolm has a peaceful and smooth afterlife. The construction ban on this land has been lifted, and work can continue. The Lennon family's urgent crisis has been resolved. Harvey, though confused, was there with me that day. He watched me go upstairs and then saw me come back down, utterly distraught. He seemed to want to ask something, but he also knew he wouldn't get an answer from me. That day, I only took a gourd pendant from that room. This mansion was Malcolm's former residence, but after so many years and countless owners, the only thing that still belonged to him was the pendant I once gave him. I had known long ago that our connection was severed, but when he appeared and then vanished before my eyes, I still felt a sense of loss. The gourd pendant in my hand seemed to remind me that the thread connecting me to that war-torn era had already been cut. The current Naomi is just Naomi. At the age of 28, I graduated with a Ph.D. and officially joined a research institute. I didn't socialize much, spending my days in the lab. The Lennon family initially reached out to me, saying there are no parents in the world who are completely without fault. But after all, I'm not the daughter they wanted, and they're not the parents I wanted either. My demands for material life aren't high. My job satisfies my life pursuits. It's just that my superiors often make a fuss, insisting I have officers accompany me when coming and going. The Lennon family must have realized later that as long as I don't want to see them, there's no way they can appear before me. They have no idea where I am now. The fate of an arranged marriage could never possibly fall upon me. For several years afterward, I lived alone, learning bits and pieces about the Lennon family from others. Louis gradually stepped back. Harvey took over the Lennon family. But in this rapidly changing era, the Lennon family's competitors emerged one after another. Even if Harvey were some kind of business prodigy, it would be difficult to fight against the times. The Lennon family was declining, albeit at a relatively slow pace. As for Rita, she had a child, but I heard Jared is not a good man. Some men are like fermented wine. They may look fine, but one sniff reveals they've gone bad. They had a passionate romance. But over the years, they only ended up wasting each other's time. But this is just my opinion. After all, Rita and I seek different things. The life she leads now is no different from what she described to me when she stood on the steps as a teenager. Her material life remains an unattainable endpoint for many. Later, one of my research findings was published. Lewis used that opportunity to reveal my identity. During that period, they contacted me frequently, hoping I would return to attend Lewis's birthday banquet. Clearly, Rita had become the discarded pawn in this farce. Lewis weighed his options, or perhaps realized during the earlier crisis with the Lenin family that to expand his political connections, a daughter in scientific research would be an excellent stepping stone. I received Rita's belated message, filled with resentment and unwillingness. You win. What Lewis didn't know was that my unpublished research results destined me to be someone beyond his control as a biological father. I blocked him directly. He was an eyesore. Harvey later wanted to say something, but whenever he opened his mouth, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I put both him and his father on my blacklist. I was immersed in work until even my boss and colleagues started worrying about my personal life. I could only tell them that my heart belonged solely to research, and I had already decided to dedicate my life to it. Over the years, many outstanding men have appeared in my life. They were wonderful, but it's just that moments of heart fluttering are hard to come by again in my life. The old man in the Taoist robe once told me that this life of mine is my next life. Thus, I could merge with the memories of Naomi and feel what she felt, though the memories of past lives also merged together. It took me a long time to regain a sense of belonging to this era. In my free time, I occasionally buy some flowers to keep at home. I'd like to have pets, but I'm too busy and worry I couldn't keep them alive. Later on, when I started taking in students myself, looking at their innocent, untested faces, I couldn't help but feel nostalgic for my younger self. I'm not stern, but I am meticulous, and my dear students have endured quite a bit under my guidance. But they are all outstanding young individuals. I saw the faces of the people who had just been speaking outside the door. A handsome young man and a boy came into view. We are all telling the story of this generation. Extra, Malcolm perspective. I met Naomi when we were children. Her father once taught me how to write. Naomi has been a strong-willed woman since childhood. She is beautiful, but her beauty goes far beyond mere appearance. We grew up together, witnessing our country's suffering and the people's hardships. Though unwilling, we were powerless. Her father donated much of their family fortune, yet it still wasn't enough. My parents later went north to do business, supplying food for the army. She said she wanted to study abroad, to see what the scenery was like in other countries. At that time, danger lurked everywhere, and my parents made the decision to send both of us away. When we first discovered love, we also secretly kissed on summer nights, imitating others. She was like a beam of light in my life, and I couldn't help but draw closer, to fall in love with her. She was that wonderful. After overcoming numerous difficulties, we finally returned to our homeland. We pledged to spend our lives together. However, as war broke out everywhere, even though we were on the same side, we had to endure a temporary separation. I was exposed during an operation to cover the retreat of civilians. Death was so close to me. Before losing consciousness, I was praying that my Naomi could see a country free from war in the future. Someone as wonderful as her would surely have other admirers. She would meet someone better. If I have any regrets, it's probably that I haven't seen her in so long. I really wish I could see her again. The end.